For tonight, we're going to be doing watercolors with soft edges. And most of what I'm going to be showing you is going to have the feel of a landscape, but not necessarily. So I'll show you some examples. This is an artist card. So I like to make the mini artworks. And this is an artist card that I made. And you see how soft and flowy the paint is there. So this is one that um, is the artist trade card size. So that's 2.5 by 3.5 for that. But that's some of the technique that we're going to do tonight. These are these were all from one long skinny sheet of paper. So whenever I am working on a piece of paper, if I have to cut parts off of it in order to make the right shape or size for other paintings, what I like to do is make sure that the portion that I'm cutting off is either 2.5 to 3 inches deep and then long enough so that I can get a bunch of 2.5 by 3.5 pieces out of it. And that way, this was a cutoff from a large piece of paper. And then I was able to make a series. And these actually were all together like this 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I made the artwork with lots of water and watercolor, very soft, sort of landscape-ish. Let me see a good one that I can show you where what I was doing was trees up here and the reflection of the trees on the water down here. And then I cut them into trade card size, did a little bit of the collage on them. Now, this coming month, which is July, is going to be something called World Watercolor Month. And I wanted to let y'all know that World Watercolor Month is coming. So you're going to see quite a bit extra activity out on the internet by artists with information about watercolors. And so, World Watercolor Month, there's an organization that they get sponsors. So, for instance, Holbein Paints, and I'll show you this is what the box looks like for Holbein. That's the Holbein company, Holbein Watercolors. And so the Holbein Paint Company is one of the sponsors, corporate sponsors of World Watercolor Month. And so they advertise it on their social media, the Holbein social media, as well as World Watercolor Month right here. This is from Instagram. And what they've done is created a prompt. So that is just a word for every day of the month of July. And then the concept is that we create artwork as artists all around the world. There are artists in every country doing this. And then you do your interpretation of what this word is in a watercolor. And then you post it to your social media and you use the uh, world World Watercolor Month or hashtag World Watercolor Month 2025. And then throughout the course of the month, what World Watercolor Month does is they will share different people's artwork to their page on social media as well. And it's a lot of fun, and people get to see artwork from all over the world and learn about other artists, and it's a blast. So I highly recommend that you go to World Watercolor Month. And in the description of the video on YouTube, I will put a link to the Instagram for World Watercolor Month so that if you want to look at and print off, as I did, the prompts for the month, then you'll have access to that. All right. Now, the artists that were my inspiration for tonight, there was one artist in particular, but then I found two other artists that are doing similar work. And the artist that inspired tonight's workshop is Katie White. So Katie White, and don't worry, like I said, the link to her Instagram will be in the description of the video. I'll put it in probably tomorrow on uh, on the YouTube description. And so here she is. And so she does a lot of very, what she calls it, meditative watercolor. So this is some of the posts from her Instagram, and you can see how she's using a lot of water, a little bit of color here, and just flooding these areas with paint. It's so much fun. And that's the beauty of, it's called watercolor, right? So one of the main ingredients to watercoloring is water, and playing with the water in order to get these dreamy effects. I did do a dreamy landscape workshop before, and you can find that in the under the live tab on YouTube. And that shows you doing actual, making the runny paints go in sort of a landscape type of um, gradient. But this is a little bit different what we're going to do today. It's a little softer still. This is more of Katie White's pieces. So here she's showing where she's got a lot of water flooded on her paper, and she's just touching it with paint. And you can see that the paint is flowing or running. And then here is one that she's working on with her watercolors. And here's one that is matted that she did. Okay, so again, that's Katie White. And I have one more for Katie White, because she doesn't just do the dreamy landscapes. She also uses the same technique. This is a flower that she was working on. These are some circles. I do a lot of circles. I like the circles myself. And then here she is back to working on one of the um, kind of mini landscapes, or mini diffusion type soft edges painting. Now, there's another lady out of the UK named Dolores Phelps. And so she has a page on Instagram called Dolores Phelps Watercolors. And you'll notice that colors is spelled with an OURS. So that was my hint that she must be from somewhere in Europe. Right? And so she also does a lot of the very loose and let the water do the work. So you can see one here, a big one that she's working on, where she put the water and let the water run here. This one is monotone. We're going to do that in 2 workshops from now. We're going to work with monotone, meaning one color, to make artwork. So this is an example of one color. And then also you see here one color, but you've got different tones, right? You've got the lightest version all the way up to the darkest version. And but here it's also very watery and very dreamy. So love that. And she's using pipettes and palette knives. So a pipette looks like this to dispense water. And she's also using a palette knife to move the watercolor around, which is not something that you might normally think about with watercolor. Normally, you think you're using a brush, right? But she uses palette knives and pipettes. And I love that. I love the effects. So, again, this is Dolores Phelps watercolor. So you can see, wow, just beautiful. I like that she does the diffuse landscape here, and then she pushes the color up in ways to get trees, which I thought was really cool, instead of just being soft and sort of nebulous. And then one more artist, and that is, what is it? Karen Rice. So Karen Rice Art here on Instagram. Like I said, I'll put the links into the description of the video. And so she is also a watercolor artist. And I just love how dreamy this is, like a coastline. But she's not only using that very watery effect, she's also, if you look at those white areas in here, that is dry brushing. So that's getting all the water out of the brush and then running it across the paper. And if you have a textured paper, you'll get that, what we call broken color. So she's using a combination of very diffused here, and then doing some dry brushing in combination with it. And I think it's just fabulous. And then the thing that I really liked about Karen Rice art and that I played around with a little bit as well is this is a cut up credit card. So I've got an old credit card here and we're going to cut this up into smaller pieces and we're going to use that to move the watercolor paint around and get, so this is the beginning of it, putting it across. And then she comes in with lots of water here and lots of water here, and this is what she ends up with. She also ran her palette knife. She ran the palette knife through there to get those lines. And wow. So it's simple, but it's not easy. Okay. Simple, but not easy. Ask me how I know. Yeah, because I've been practicing. Now, when we create a diffused background, so I'm going to show you, for instance, this is one of the pieces that I did in getting ready for the workshop. And so this is you're running color across here and then putting lots of water in with it and letting it diffuse up and letting it diffuse down. And then I just popped a little bit more color in there. But that's the concept. It's very soft, very easy, very meditative. And then I threw a couple of birds in there using one of those Micron pens. So this is a piece that's actually now available in the buy now if you are on Whatnot. And let me show you what it looks like here. Something like this. So it would look something like that once it's matted. But let me make sure I set those aside. But that's that very easy and very diffused look right there of the paints. So that's the first type that we're going to do. And then this is where you create a diffused background. And then you go in on top of that once it's dry. You go in on top of the diffused background and then you put, like there's a bunch of gold in there. You can see the gold paint. So I used paint pens and put that in there, made dots and little lines and all of that. And so now that one is also available on Whatnot for sale. Now, if you need help with, oh, what kind of designs, I want to put some plant type designs on there, say, but I don't know what designs to do, then this is one of my favorite books for that. And it is Peggy Dean's Guide to Nature Drawing and Watercolor. And what I love about this book is it is just chock full of very simple, let me see, this is hash marks, but I think right before there, right. But she's going to give you in the book step-by-step guide on all different kinds of um, flowers. So let me go back. Flowers, leaves, plants. So if you're at a loss for, I don't know what to put on my background, I made a diffused watercolor. It's not good enough to be an artwork on its own. So what do I do with it? Then you're going to draw on top of it. So here's an example from the book where she shows you exactly what to do step by step. Um, Something like this, see there with the flower, and she's showing you step by step. So I love this book because there are so many great examples. Let me see. There's a whole section back here where she's just one flower after another flower, leaves, that kind of thing. Like here, see, how do you combine the elements together, right? And so simple, but at the same time, a great reference for if you're like, I know I want to put something on there. Let me flip through the book and see what would be good. Here is a cherry blossom and a branch of cherry blossoms. So, I love looking through this book and finding ideas for what to put on my pieces, on my backgrounds. Most of the time, I default to these kind of very wispy leaves like this that are on here. You'll see those a lot in my artwork. But if I want to do something a little more fancy than that, or maybe I want to add a flower to those leaves, then I use that book from Peggy Dean, and it's a beautiful book. So I will have a link to it in the description of the YouTube video. All right, let's talk about the watercolors that we're going to be using tonight. In particular, I really like for to get the spread, because that's what we're looking for. We're going to put down a bunch of water and we're going to put watercolor on it, and we want that watercolor to spread. Now, most watercolors will naturally spread in water, but there is one brand in particular that spreads a lot. And it has to do with the binder that they put the pigments in, and that is the core watercolors. So this is what a tube looks like right here. And see, it says QOR, and that is by the Golden Paint Company. Um, a lot of watercolor artists do not like these paints because they spread so much. I love these paints because they spread so much. So potato, potato, right? It's like and so I'm going to show you that effect when we get over top of the table, but I love the way they spread. Another feature of these paints is that when you take it out of the tube and you put it into a pan, so this is a pan of the core quinacridone magenta. So I've poured it into a little pan. This is called a half pan. So these are, that's my color card for a pink. This is called a travel case. And so it has a little thumb or a little finger holder right there, so that when you're out in the field, it's a field box, you can hold it in your hand like that and get the paint out easily. And then it will not fall out if you have your finger in there. But these are the brilliant colors right here. Those are all core QOR watercolor paints. And I love that they re-wet very easily. So sometimes you'll find that watercolors, once they're dry and in the pan, sometimes they can be difficult to get the paint to come back up in suspension, right? But the core, something about their proprietary binder makes them super easy. They release the pigment beautifully, and that may be what also helps it to spread when you put it in the water. And so I love these paints for that purpose. And I love them so much once I started playing with them that when I went to Fort Lauderdale, there's a Blick store and a Jerry's Artorama store there. Oh my gosh, y'all. So I went hog wild. I spent like a whole year's budget on art supplies. Okay. And so I went to the Blick store and I purchased, let's see, drum roll, you're getting to see them. What I wanted to do was I knew what colors I had in my set here. And so I needed other colors to sort of fill in my palette. It's a 24 color palette. So I went ahead and I bought a bunch more. Let's see how many, 7 more, it looks like 7 more colors. So I got some more greens. This one is a cadmium red, a phthalo blue. I have a little teeny tiny tube of phthalo blue right here, which is your primary blue. And you can see that it is, there's barely any left in it. So I bought a whole large tube of that. I bought a cadmium yellow light, which is perfect for mixing. And then an oxide red and an oxide yellow. That's these right here. These are very earthy and they granulate a lot. So those are new core colors that I just bought, and I'm so excited. So excited for those. I'm going to create a video for YouTube swatching those because from Jerry's Artorama, one of my favorite things from their store are these painter's color diary. And if you watch any of my regular videos on YouTube, I have a bunch of videos showing me in here swatching different watercolor paints in this swatch book. It's fabulous. They are fantastic. So I'm I'm not going to do that tonight, but I am going to make a video because then I'll be able to show you all of the core watercolors that I have, um, and kind of why I got those colors. Okay, as you can see here that I added a little bit of the cobalt green, the oxide yellow, and the oxide red right here for some of these diffused pieces that I was doing. And this is a background that I created. Remember I showed you this one right here that was a background and then I painted on top of it. You have to wait for the background to dry fully before you paint on top of it. And so we're not going to have time to wait. Well, it's time to wait, right? So I went ahead and I painted on one of the watercolor rounds with some of the core watercolors here. And then I'm going to show you what it was that I did in order to sort of create that diffused background that we're going to draw on top of. So I'll show you the types of things that I use to draw on top of it. But we're going to feature the core paints tonight, but that's not all that I have because I have a huge collection of watercolor paints. I had mentioned before the Holbein. So this is my favorite set. If you're new to watercolor, let's say you're new to World Watercolor Month, right? The World Watercolor Month, and you're like, oh, what watercolors should I get? Then I highly recommend this, which is the Holbein Watercolors 12 color set. And here's what it looks like inside here. Eek, the tubes. And they're just, the colors are so rich, so phenomenal, very, professional grade. So you'll get the effects that you want. Besides that, I also have my favorite colors in Daniel Smith. Daniel Smith is also a fine watercolor manufacturer. Actually, they're a US manufacturer, Daniel Smith. So this one is the Lunar Earth, which is a beautiful earthy red. Reminds me of the mountains, like the hills in Arizona. When I go out to Arizona, they look kind of this color. Between this color and they also have a red earth, and so they look kind of like those. And then this one, Cascade Green, is my favorite green that comes from a Daniel Smith. And the Cascade Green does explode really well. So that's why I have that one out here. And then the other is the Holbein Peacock, which is my favorite blue of all the blues. And so you can see, oops, this one is, I can't even get a half pan out of that. There's only a little bit left in the top here. And I have a fresh tube already ready to go. But for what we're doing tonight, this will work perfectly. So those are some of the paints that we'll be looking at tonight. And then the paper, because we're going to have to take those paints and put them onto a paper, right? So the paper that I like to use for just general experimentation to get warmed up and get a feel for what it is that I'm doing. There are two papers. There's the watercolor paper by US Art Supply here. You get 3 notebooks for a very reasonable price. They're bundled together. And the thing about this paper is, well, it has a perforation there, which is kind of cool. It makes it easy to take the pages out, but it has a textured side here. You can paint on either side, textured side and a smooth side. And the textured side looks almost like a fabric weave on here. So, it's okay. It's perfect for practice. Then there it, because it's very economical too. And then there is the Canson. This is my studio staple, the Canson XL watercolor paper. And this one also has a textured surface, but it's a very lightly textured surface. So I love that about this watercolor paper. Now this is in a pad like this. So the 3 sides are loose and then it's taped at the top. Um, because we're going to be using a lot of water, oftentimes what I'll do is I will take this off of the pad and tape it down onto a board. I have one of those drawing boards and I'll tape it down onto the board, and then I'll paint on it, and that prevents it from doing this, right? Otherwise it curls up on you. Okay. And then those are kind of studio workhorses. Then the finer papers are, well, here is fluid watercolor, and here fluid watercolor paper. What I like about this is it's a block. So it's taped. I mean, it's glued one side, two sides. Let's see, one, two. All right, it's glued on this side and this side, but that helps to prevent the paper from curling up too much on you. So this is called a watercolor block, and I love painting on watercolor blocks. But this, nor this, nor this are 100% cotton. These are more practice papers. Okay, you can do final artwork on them. It's just that they're not considered museum quality. They're not, excuse me, 100% cotton. Let me see. I'm looking on the fluid just to see what it says. Um, it says acid free, but it does not say 100% cotton. And if it's 100% cotton, trust me, they will put it right up there out front. So this paper right here is one of my favorites. Actually, I have two from the same company. These are both, I'll show you the front of this one. Let's see. This is from the Legion Paint Company. This is Stonehenge White. This one, a lot of people love this paper. It's called Stonehenge White. It's 100% cotton, and it says it right here. Okay. A nice heavy paper, 100% cotton, perfect for doing pencil drawing, watercolors, anything like that. Now you can see it's in a spiral notebook. It's not in a pad, and so the paper will curl somewhat when you've got lots of water. But if you're drawing or you're doing that paper, the Stonehenge White is great for, what's it called, like printing. If you're going to do a print on it, it's fantastic. Since it's made from 100% cotton, it's like, imagine a t-shirt, right? You can get the t-shirt wet and wring it out, and then it'll dry perfectly. So that's what these 100% cotton papers do. You can just beat them up with water. It's great. Now, this one is actually Stonehenge Aqua. So you can see the word aqua here. This one's aqua hot press, meaning it's smooth. And then there's aqua cold press, and there's aqua black. So beautiful papers. And this is a block. So what does that mean? It is glued here and it's glued here. So that will help keep the paper flat while you're working on it, right? Love this paper. The Stonehenge papers are beautiful, but they're also expensive. And then there is Yupo paper, which is not paper at all. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. Where did I put my Yupo? Ah, oh, here it is. So Yupo comes in the round that I had showed you a minute ago, as well as it comes in this long skinny. So this is a piece I was working on today for the workshop right here. What I like about the Yupo, it's a polypropylene, and so it's a plastic. And the cool thing is watercolor sits up on top of it. So you don't get any of the color soaking in. All the color sits up on top. And then so that you can see it kind of dries with these interesting lines. As it was drying, I would pick it up and move it around and let the water sort of flow around so that I could get the concentration of colors where I wanted them. And it just gives you this really neat, like, can you see the lines in there? Just very cool. Now, I happen to like this long, thin format, but if you don't so much like the long, thin format, if you find them on sale, because they're expensive too, they're by Legion paper as well. Notice I have a line across here. This is one 8x10 matted, and this is another 8x10 matted. So you can get two matted 8x10s out of one of these long sheets of paper if you don't want to do artwork that is long. And so that's what this is. If I take that, this is a regular 8x10 mat, and I would put it, this is now available on Whatnot also, this piece. So I would take it like that. There you go. something like that. So it would be in the 8 by 10 mat. And you get the feel for that. It's very loose, to me, they're very calming pieces of artwork. But I love working on top of the Yupo because of the way that the watercolor moves around the paper. Now, there's also something called stone paper, or in this case, Yasutomo makes mineral paper. Same thing, it's pulverized stone that they use a binder with. And the cool thing about the mineral paper or the stone paper is that it's fully biodegradable. So if you felt like you didn't like the artwork, you can just throw it in the garbage. It decays, it biodegrades back into rock. Okay. Which is awesome. So yeah, I really enjoy working on the mineral paper, and the same thing with the mineral paper as with the Yupo polypropylene. It is a thin paper, very smooth, and your watercolor will sit up on top, which is fabulous. Now, because we are doing very high water content artwork here, you're going to need some mop brushes. So this is a mop brush. This is a mop brush. So you see there's a lot of hair on there. These are both by Princeton. This is the Princeton Velvet Touch, and this is the Princeton Select brush. Like, one is shorter handle than the other. You can see there. My favorite is the Princeton Velvet Touch, but this is what I like to travel with, is the Select brushes, because they have the short handles. And then besides a mop like this, if you're working on a large sheet of paper, you might want to use something that looks more like this. This is called a Mottler, Mottler. And this one's by Winsor Newton, and this one is a Princeton Neptune. So you can see the various sizes, but they're very soft and they hold a lot of water, and they're perfect for the type of technique that we're going to be doing tonight. Now, besides the brushes that hold a lot of water like this, we're also going to need some detail brushes. So these are my favorite Princeton Velvet Touch brushes, and you can see this is the long round. This one happens to be a number 8. And then I have the number 6 right here. And then I love Christy Rice, her paints and her brushes. And so this is one of Christy Rice's, she's a watercolor artist. And this is one of her brushes from one of her brush sets. And you see how large and fluffy the top is here. It holds a lot of water. It's also perfect for this type of effect. And then we're going to be using a palette knife, and we're going to cut up an old card. You can use a hotel room card, an expired credit card, like this is an old credit card. And we're going to use droppers for water to get that water on there and get it to spread. There's one other tool that I use sometimes. This is by Princeton as well. It's the Catalyst. And because it has this hard edge to it, you can pick up the watercolor paint and do that scraping effect. Um, if you don't happen to have a palette knife, or you don't have an old card. When I go to a hotel room, if I'm running low on my cards, I'll just keep the card from the hotel room, right? A lot of times you run out and you forget about it anyway, and you're like, uh-oh, and you have all these plastic cards. They're great for doing this kind of effect with watercolor. And I'm also going to be using a brush rest, because when these are full of water, I don't want them sitting directly on top of my table. So it's helpful to have a brush rest on your table. And we'll be using a squirt bottle of water. That's a good way to get the water to spray out, which is great. Okay, let me put these away, and then I think we are ready. We're ready to go over top of the table. Hold on just a moment here. Let me make sure I have it all together. Yes. All right, I'm going to put my details down here for my Instagram channel. And if you're on Whatnot, for my YouTube channel, and my website where you can sign up for my newsletter. Um, Usually once a week, not always, but usually once a week, I put out an email and I tell you what the upcoming workshop is, and then also what new artwork I've created. Here is my website, deetsart.com. I have links to supplies. So on Whatnot, I offer finished artworks for sale and a few art supplies that I've gathered, but for the most part, the art supplies, the paints and things that we use, you'll need to go to my website, and there's a menu item called supply links on deetsart.com, and you can find a lot of the supplies there. Also, for each workshop that I do, I include in the description of the video on YouTube and in an article that I write on my blog, the links to all the supplies that are used during the workshop, so that you can find them easily and have access to them there. And I love it when you use my links. Thank you for using my links. It helps the channel, right? Oh, okay. So let's go ahead then. And I am going to get just let me find it here. I'm just going to use this to start out with. Ta-da. This was the US Art Supply. I want to show you how these core paints work. So this is the watercolor, 30 sheets each. The size is 5.5 by 8.5. So these actually fit nicely into an 8x10 frame. You see that? So if you do artworks on these and you like the artwork, you absolutely can put it into I'm sorry, not a frame, a mat, an 8x10 mat like that. But I wanted to get this all wet and show you how the core watercolors explode. So we're going to do a combination of the ones out of the pans here. So in other words, they were allowed to dry first. When your paint comes out of a tube, it's very, what I would call juicy. It's nice and moist. And I love that about working with watercolor tubes. My favorite is to work with tubes, but when you put it into your pans like this, it's very convenient. I can easily take this into the other room to paint with. And oftentimes, as artists, we paint all over the house, right? They're all different places, wherever we can find a moment that we go ahead and paint. And so it's not always as convenient to use the paint out of the tubes as it is to use the paint from pans like this once you squeeze it in and let it dry. When you do use paint from the tubes like this, you need some sort of palette to put it in. These are actually palette pans right here. Boop. So you can see this is a little palette pan, a butcher tray, an enamel tray, and these are actually the core watercolors right in here. The when I just want a little bit, when I want to paint something and I want some fresh paint, I just squeeze a little bit in here and then I work from there. Okay, so let's get this wet. I'm going to start out by using the mop brush here and just some fresh water. The nice thing about a mop brush is it is designed to hold a lot of water. Do you see it dripping out of there? It is not dripping, darling. It is holding that water in there. So let's just do this. I want to show you how the core paints work. And then we'll try one or two of the other paints as well. But here we go. So that is nice and sopping wet. That's what I wanted. I want to get that sopping wet. Now we're going to take this is the Christy Rice brush. It says Creative Rebel on it, which I think is wonderful. So if I take paint directly from the tube, so let's take this core. Ooh, I love the magenta. You can see it's almost gone. I use a lot of the magenta. So if I take this, so now I'm using it directly from the tube, right? And you're going to see it's like nice and juicy right off of the tube. And I put the color on there. You see how that just exploded across there? I love that. Ah, I just love that. Ah, it makes me so happy to see that, the way it just goes poof and explodes out of there. Okay, now I've got a lot of color in here. So before I put it in the water, I'm going to try to get some of that. You see how much color was left in there? That's another thing that a lot of artists don't like about core paints is that they're highly pigmented. Um, by that, but they're not just highly pigmented, they're modern colors. So they are super bright, super dense. And some artists prefer watercolors that are a little more muted. And so that's another reason sometimes why people don't like the core, but I love in your face color. And so that's why I'm in love with the core paints. Now this is still nice and wet. Let's get, that was out of a tube. Now let me show you here. Let me take a different color. Okay, this is phthalo blue. And I have not sprayed this with water. Okay, I'm just taking it straight where it's dry, taking it straight on the brush like that. And you're getting a very similar explosion. Do you see that? And I adore that. The fact that these paints re-wet so beautifully and give you that powerful color right out of this little pan with hardly any, you're hardly using any effort to get it back out. Like I told you, some paints you really have to work it to get it out of to get it rehydrated and out of the pan, and which drives me a little bit nuts because I want to just sit down and paint. Well, with core paints, you can just sit down and woo, there it goes. Well, let's get that color out of there. See, a lot of color comes out of those little pans. Okay, now that is the core watercolors. Let's try the Cascade Green from Daniel Smith. Let me make sure there's plenty of water in on the paper still. Yep, nice and wet. Yeet. Don't want it too soaking. Let's get some of it up there. Yeet. I'm just using my paper towel. When there's too much water, you can get a little bit of it up with the paper towel easily like that. All right. Oh, my favorite Daniel Smith color. Uh, Moon Glow and Lunar Black and Lunar Blue are kind of other really nice colors, but I have to say my all-time favorite so far from Daniel Smith is Cascade Green. So that was thick on there. And let's put it, all right. It's doing a little bit of exploding of its own straight out of the tube. There you go. When the paint is nice and juicy, you can see it just pushes. But these two, which are the core paints, oh my gosh, their push is a little more intense than the Daniel Smith is. But the Daniel Smith definitely has good explosion technique. I likey. Okay. For what it is that we're going to be doing, we want that exploding effect. All right, and then we're going to try the so that was good. Now it is going to be the explosion effect is the pigment that's in the paint is going to have a little bit of effect on that as well, because I find oftentimes with the pure yellows that I don't get as much explosion with them, but it could just be the pigment itself. Now, here's why I like the Cascade Green from Daniel Smith so much. Let me show you. Do you see how it's green in the middle, but then it separates out and you get this blue around the edges? Wow, wow. Like, I love that for the concept of like a peacock, or if you're doing a leaf and you like the edges to look like they're a little bit in shadow. Oh my gosh, the Cascade Green is so good for that. Okay. Ooh, let me get this. I don't want to get it all messed up. Let's move that out of the way. Okay, so the next one I want to show you is the Holbein. So this is by Holbein Watercolors. That's his company. Holbein, my favorite blue, the peacock blue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to get some of this water up because we're just testing on this page. So it did not matter. And that's why I love these little books, from the US Art Supply, because if you just want to experiment and test things out, super cheap. So they're talking my language when it comes to the cost, right? So let's go back to a textured page here. I have my mop brush, and let's put some more water on here. Phew, nice. This brush, the top of it is heavy because it holds a lot of water. Fabulous. Fantastic. And that's what a mop brush is supposed to do, by the way. So it is doing what it's supposed to do. Now, some people, when they're doing this technique I'm going to be showing you today, they just take paint right from the tube. So let's just do that. I'm just going to use the top, kind of what is coming out there. And they will just put the paint on there from the tube. But what you're going to notice about this is the Holbein. You see how it's not exploding this direction or that direction? It's just sort of going in a line like that. So it doesn't have those same exploding properties. Let me see if I add a little more concentration of water here. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a bleed up. Can you see the bleed up there? But not as much as I like when I'm doing this technique. When I'm doing the technique we're working on today, I really want it to explode. Which is why I love the core watercolors. Now this paint, as you can see, it's very old and it's almost finished, the tube. So let's use a fresh tube of Holbein paint. Okay, I have the 6 and the 12. Like I said, if you can only afford it, get the 6, but my favorite is the 12. These are 5 milliliter size tubes here of the Holbein watercolor. Plenty of paint. If you're new to watercolor painting, it's absolutely plenty of paint for you and an excellent selection of colors. Now, this set of 12 has the permanent yellow light in it, and this set of 6 has permanent yellow deep in it. So I just wanted to let you know there is a difference. The rest of the colors are the same colors that you're going to find in the set of 12, but there's a difference between the yellows. Okay. I tend myself to prefer using the yellow light for color mixing. But if you use the yellow deep for color mixing, you actually get richer, deeper colors. So it all depends on, what you like. With this set, which is the 6, I would buy the 6 set and then buy just a tube of 5 milliliters of the permanent yellow light. And then to me, at least you would have all the colors that you need there for mixing. Okay, so that's my suggestion. If you want to get the 6, then just top it up with one of the light yellows and you'll have tons of colors to work with there because of color mixing. Okay, let's go ahead and add a little bit more water here. And then we're going to take it on a brush like we did with the other ones, a fresh one. Ooh, which one do I want to use? Let's permanent green #1 or Viridian. Let's use the Viridian hue. So if it says hue on your color, like that does, that means it's a synthetic version of Viridian, which I'm not sure, but I think that in olden times, 1800s, 1700s, that Viridian was if I remember correctly, it might have been a poisonous color. There are several colors that were poisonous, like vermilion used to be poisonous, but now there are modern versions of them. And if it says hue, then it looks like the color, but it doesn't have the negative effects of the color. Okay, so I've got some of it from the tube on my brush here. Let's see what happens. See, it's just not exploding. You see what's happening there? It's staying put, which may be what you want. It may be the effect that you want, but what we're going for today is explosions. So I think we're going to stick with the Daniel Smith and the core colors in order to get the dispersion that we want. So that's why it's important to know the properties of your various paints brands so that you're using them, you're selecting the brands that are going to work for the technique that you want to, or the effect that you want to get. Okay, but absolutely gorgeous. The Holbein paints, gorgeous, gorgeous, blend beautifully, professional grade, but just not the perfect colors for what we're doing. Now, I may take a little bit of this peacock just because I love the color, and I may pop it in little places to the artwork that I'm doing, but it's not going to explode like the core paints will, which are made with that Aquazol, the binder that lets it, release like that. But because you're getting a little bit of spread here, but not nearly as much spread as we got on the other ones. Okay, so I think you understand what we're looking for here. So I'm going to just set this aside. Yee, goodbye. Oh, let's see if we can just sort of get a bunch of that up. There we go. I can always come back in and make something else out of that now that I've got a lot of that up. Fab. So that can come in handy another time. Use it another time. All right. So now you can see why I love the core for the technique that we're going to be doing today. All right. Let's start out with a watercolor paper. So I'm actually going to, I'm going to use this one, which is the Stonehenge Aqua Hot Press. I adore this paper. Oh my gosh. All the Legion papers, by the way, it says Legion, we are paper. And absolutely, you can get any Legion paper and they're all delicious, beautiful, gorgeous. They're just fabulous. What can I tell you? You can always count on them. Okay, so we're going to do, first thing we're going to do is create sort of an area up here. So let me just move this up a little bit more. So we're going to create sort of a bulbous area up here. This would be like the sky in a landscape. So first things first, lots of water. Now, when I put the water down, this is a beautiful watercolor paper pad, the Stonehenge Aqua Hot Press, and it's got glue on both of these sides here. So the advantage to that is what? The advantage to that is that it is not, it should very minimally curl. Okay. If it's going to curl at all, it's going to be very minimal, which is fabulous. Now, this happens to be a smooth paper. You can also get the what's called cold press, which is a textured paper as opposed to the hot press. The hot press, they after they make the paper, they roll it through what do they call it? Through hot rollers, and that makes it flat, nice and smooth. Okay, so let's go ahead and I like using a mop brush for this as opposed to this kind, the Mottler, because the Mottler, see how it's straight across the top here? And the mop brush has a bit of a rounded edge to it. So for what we're doing right now, and let me show you the piece that we're kind of modeling this after. So if you notice here, it's round here and sort of round along the edges, right? We're going for that soft rounded edge right now. And so in order to get that, I feel like I need to use a round headed brush, a brush that has this. If you don't have one of these kind of brushes, a mop brush, you certainly can use, let me show you another kind of brush that's really good for that. I only have like a million brushes here. Okay, so this one, which is called an oval, they call it an oval wash. Some people call it a cat's tongue. This one's from Hobby Lobby brand Master's Touch. Great brush. Love that. I actually have the same brush in more than one size because I just love it. And this is a great one for doing that as well. Or you could even take a something called a dagger brush. You see how it's curved right here, and that'll help make those curved edges as well. I think I have a bigger one of those. Yes, this is a Christy Rice brush. You see how it has the curve there. So a curve like this or which is a dagger, it's called. What does she call this one? 3/4 inch dagger. That'll help make those rounded edges that I'm looking for. Okay. Or if you have a brush like this, which is called a quill brush, Quill. You see how fluffy it is and it's rounded on top. It holds a lot of water, and that'll help you also to get those rounded edges, soft edges that we're looking for. Okay, so let's take the mop again. I'm going into fresh water, and I'm just going to create sort of a very organic sort of cloudiness to the top here. And okay, so I can see some of the areas. It's like slopping up the paint already. I mean, the water before the paint's even on there. I'm looking at it at an angle so I can make sure that there's plenty of water sitting on top. When you have a paper like this, a regular paper, a cotton paper, um, a portion of that water is going to soak in. And what a lot of people do before they start their painting is they will soak the fibers of the paper by getting the paper completely wet and then leaving it to dry. And then when they come back to put water on top of it, they don't get this where the water like soaks in. And so I'm adding a little bit more water because some of it has already soaked in. All right. So I'll be keeping this handy so I can put more water on there. As I'm doing this process, you'll see that I'm like, oh, I need to add a little more water here, a little more water there. Okay, I'm going to use the Christy Rice brush right now. The other alternative I like to use a lot is the Princeton long round brush. But see how tapered this one is? The Princeton Velvet Touch. It's a great brush, and I use it for a lot of things. I really like the Christy Rice brush because it's a little more rounded to the top. It still comes to a nice point, but it's a little bit rounder, a little snappier, meaning it's got a little bit more body to it. So let's start out with some of the yellow here. And I'm just going to take the color and touch it. And because it's the core watercolor, look at how it spreads. You see how it's spreading there? Oh my gosh, that makes me so happy. And it's releasing very easily from here because it's the core, and the Aquazol helps it to release. It's just fabulous. Fantastic. So now we've got some color building around there, right? With the yellow. Nice. Let's grab a little bit more. So I can keep tapping it, and that intensifies it. It adds more color into it, and then the color is going to spread because of the water. Okay, let's go with an orange. So I have two different oranges. I have the Pyrrole orange and the permanent scarlet, those two. So I think I actually have them switched in here. So the nice thing about a travel palette is I can pop this out and I can move it around. Isn't that awesome? They're great. So because I got a bunch of new paints, I'm going to be able to switch these all around and then make a new one of these cards and just pop them back in. Fantastic. So very convenient using something like a palette like this, a travel palette. Thank you, Christy Rice. This is one of the Christy Rice palettes. Let me show you on the outside. She put some of her artwork on there, and then this says dive into your joy. Is that nice? And then it says paint fresh Christy Rice on the back. These, I mean, they come into stock and boom, they're out of stock, just like that. I didn't even see it online recently. But you can often you can go to her website and find things that you can't find anywhere else. So christyrice.com, with a Christy with a K, Kristy. Now I'm going to add a little bit more water in here because I want to be sure that the orange that I put in here explodes, and I want to keep the wetness up here as well. So you'll be constantly adding more water using this technique. Okay, I want to get some of that pyrrole orange in there, and I'm just tapping. Oh my gosh, it's exploding. It's awesome. Thank you, Core. Holy moly. Okay, let me show you. It is so much fun. And that's why this artist, what was her name? Katie White. She, this is like her morning routine. She sits there and she paints these small paintings and just lets the paint do the work. And it's so much fun. You can already see where there's a bunch of the orange has come up here. Now I'm going to hold it up a little bit because I don't want quite so much orange up in there. I'm going to be throwing some blue in there shortly. So let me, actually, I'm going to pick up some of that orange and then I'm going to lay down a little bit more water. I just don't want as much orange up there because I'm planning to put blue. And when you mix blue and orange together, they're opposite each other on the color wheel, so they can create sort of a muddy color. And I want the blue to be nice. Okay, so now we're going to, for my skies, I like to use cobalt teal. So I'm going to show you here. Cobalt teal, which I think is PG 50. Let's see. I'm good. The color number on the back is PG 50. So if you have another brand of paint, if you find PG 50, it'll be the same, essentially the same color. Okay, there's a little too much water here, so I'm picking it up. All right, watch what happens. Oh my gosh, it's exploding. Yes, life is good. Wow. You see how that just exploded? And it just is pushing down into the other areas. It's lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. I love that. I can get a little bit more and drop some more in there. And actually, what I want to do with this blue is I want to flick it and get some dots. So I'm going to sort of move other things out of the way and then just flick it down on here so I can get, I like that look, having a little bit of spatter. Spatter is good while your brush is all juiced up. Nice. Now a little bit of that blue is creeping into the orange. Hey, what are you doing? So I'm just using the edge of my paper towel and I'm saying, no, 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 no. I'm going to put more orange in there because I don't want the blue coming all the way down here into the orange. Okay. So I'm rinsing off the brush and let's pick up some more of that orange. Yes, pyrrole orange. Come on, pyrrole orange. You can do it. Fill that area. There we go. So sometimes when I put the dots in there, they don't spread. Once the paper starts to dry, I don't always get the same spread that I'm looking for. So I'm going to use my spray bottle and I'll show you how we do that. How we get a little more spread out of it using the water bottle. So here's our spray bottle. And I don't want to spray it up this way. I want to spray it in this direction. So I'm just going to get close and spray close. There we go. So that way it's sort of spreading in down this way instead of spreading up toward the blue. Picking up more color here and just dabbing it in and letting it spread and work its magic. There we go. Fun. Okay. So that's sort of getting the basis of what I would call like the land and the sky up in here. So now I need to create a sort of a demarcation here of the land, right? So I'm going to use some sort of, I'm going to use the Cascade Green. And I can either put the Cascade Green on a brush, or I can use the palette knife with the Cascade Green. So let's try the palette knife. Why not? So I have the tube here. I've got the edge of the palette knife. Let me get the edge of the palette knife damp. So I'm just going to squeeze a little bit so I can get a little bit on the edge there. Yee. There we go. So now I've got the green, the Cascade Green on the edge of the palette knife. So let me get this area a little bit more wet right there. And then I'm going to run this across. Let's see what happens. And I like to go from both directions. If you notice what I just did, I did a little bit from this side and then a little bit from this side. And the reason I do that is if I just go from one side to the other, by the time I get to the other side, most of the paint is off of there, and I don't like that. Another cool thing about using a palette knife is it makes a little mark on the paper. And so that's really cool because it can give you lines. Like if I wanted to do a little hill right here, I could do that and it leaves these beautiful marks. Oh, and then you can see it starting to bleed down into this part, right? Now we're going to encourage this bleed, but in a minute, in a minute, in a minute. So let me make sure that I'm maximizing what I have on here. So I'm actually going to put a bunch of it down on the bottom area, because then I'm going to, so I was just taking more of it off of there and making sure there's plenty of this watercolor paint down here. Now I'm using the Daniel Smith Cascade Green, my favorite green. All right. So I can leave it on there and rehydrate it, or I can take it off. I think I'll just sort of set it right aside there. All right. There's a little bit of water got on here. No, don't do that. Okay. So now I can come in with my water and we're going to get a reflection down here. So I'm just going to run my brush along here and let it touch that area where I put a little bit of the extra paint. And I'm just sort of creating this area down here. So do you see how it's beginning to creep, right? It's beginning to creep down here. Yee. So let me bring it up closer so you can see. You see how it's creeping down right along here? Creeping. Now I could put more on if I want it to creep more, but I want to do a blue down here. So let's just do that. It's nice and wet down in here right now. So let's get some, what color? What color do I want to use? Ooh, I would love to use the peacock. Let's just see if I use the peacock on a brush. So if I take the peacock on a brush, if your pad angled or flat on a table. Oh, Mark, I was asking if my pad here is angled or if it's level. So for the most part, this table is level, but as I'm working, I will pick it up and I'll do it a little this way. I'll do it a little that way. I'll do, I'll encourage the paint to move where I want it to move by lifting it up and moving it. So excellent question. And some people I know, I saw that they do this work um, on a slight angle so that the water's always going either up if it's toward the sky or this way if it's toward the earth. Now I'm noticing there's lots of water pooling down here because even though it's on a block, meaning it's glued on both sides, the right and the left, it is bowing in the middle like this. So the water is going to the ends, and this area right here got a little bit dry. So I'm just adding a little bit more water in there. Yay. And let's pull some of this and see what happens. This is the peacock. So I'm kind of rehydrating it with my wet brush. And let's just drop it into some already wet. So it's just, You don't get the satisfaction out of it because it doesn't explode the way the other ones do. But I can get it to explode by using my my water. I can sort of get it to move around a little bit. It's just it's not nearly as satisfying. So let me show you with the maybe let's use the ultramarine blue here from Core. Okay. So this one, let me see, which one's the ultramarine blue? Yep, right here. So the ultramarine blue here. And then, oh yeah, oh yeah. So this peacock blue didn't move at all. But when I put this down, boom, you see how it spreads? Thank you, Core. It's the Aquasol. It's their suspension method. So, okay, I'm just going to pick up a whole bunch of it here and sort of just drip it in there and let it do its thing, which is so fabulous. Now, I'm also going to grab a bunch of it with lots of water on my brush, and I'm going to sort of run it along here. Yeet. And then I'm going to encourage it. Now, before I lift it up and encourage it to come down, I need to get some of this orange right here that is super wet, meaning that it would drip down, and I don't want it to drip down. So I'm capturing it, right? It's like, no, 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 don't do that. And then there's the cobalt blue over here. There's a little extra water. And over here, there's a little extra water. So I'm just picking it up so that it doesn't like make a mess, right? I don't want it going down and making a mess. So I'm picking up some of the water gently. Okay. And there's actually, oh my goodness, I went through 2 paper towels already. There's actually a little bit of water right there. Okay. So now this is where I'm going to lift it up, and you can see all the wetness here. And I'm going to do some of this. So now I get to play a little bit with that wetness. Nice. I love, can you see sort of the spider veins right here that ultramarine blue made? Fabulous. So this is sort of blending that peacock blue together with the ultramarine blue. You can see how it's just sort of moving. Yeah, wow, right? Mark V said. Love that. Okay. So what I want to do now is I feel comfortable with what's going on down here. So it's obviously a body of water, right? I want a little bit more of this green to bleed into here because I want that sort of reflection of the land onto the water. So I'm actually going to do this with a brush now instead of using the palette knife. Although I've got a little bit, I don't know, let's see. I've got a little bit on the palette knife. Let's just get it wet. I'll pull it off of the palette knife and onto the brush. How about that? That way I don't waste any paint, right? And then I'm just going to run it along the edge here where the water is. Let's get a little bit more. Just run it along the edge there because I want it to sort of I want it to be the reflection. Okay, it's not moving the way I want it to. So I'm going to use my spray bottle. Hee hee. There we go. Do I like doing this or what? Okay, so I just sprayed it and you can see it like pushing it down. Oh, fabulous. Okay, I bring it up for you. So I just sprayed it with water directionally that way so you can get a little more of the diffusion here. So you see how we're using lots of water right now? Lots of water. Yes, lots and lots of water. And you might do this 2 or 3 times. You may let that dry and go, oh, I want a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. Or not. You may say, wow, that looks amazing. I'm going to leave it just the way it is. I'm just picking up a little bit of that blue because I don't want too much of that blue sitting there. And a little bit of the water that's sitting here. Doop, like that. Okay. Ooh, I'm liking where that's going, but I want a little bit more of the green to go up in there. Okay. So once again, we're going to take this from the Cascade Green, Daniel Smith from the tube. Okay. And I'm going to reach it right in there so I get some juicy color on the end there. Juicy, juicy. That's why I love it right out of the tube. It's nice and juicy. It's thick and juicy that way. And I'm going to get this wet. Eee. So it'll release. And then I'm holding the paintbrush differently. So don't be afraid to like, you don't always have to hold your paintbrush like a pencil. All right. So let's do this. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's spreading. It's doing what I wanted to do. Okay. So now I'm going to use my water bottle. Eek. Yes. Oh, fun. Fun. So now I've got a little bit of spread up there. Lovely. And what I can do is I can take the palette knife and I can go, I'm not going to use the whole thing here. I'm just going to use toward the end like this. And I can sort of make some lines in here. That's the cool thing about using the palette knife with watercolor. If you haven't tried it before, it's actually very cool. It leaves little lines on the paper, it kind of eats into the paper. And so then you can have like these really cool lines and then the paint will flow into those lines. So let's bring it like down. I am looking at right here. I'm bringing it down. I'm also aware that there's a bunch of water here, so I'm kind of letting it flow right there. Then I'm going to bring it back because I don't want all that water concentrated on the edge there. Okay, so I have a little bit, almost too much. No, I'm going to leave that right there, but I want a little more concentration over here. So let's see how our brush is doing. Loving the lines. Yeah, I learned that from Mixed Media Art by Trina on YouTube. She loves to do that. She puts the lines in her watercolor. She primarily does uh, abstract landscapes in watercolor and mixed media, and she does the lines. She'll either use uh, what's this called? An X-Acto knife or a knife like this. She might just use the knife and kind of go, okay, I'm going to put some lines in here. And then she'll just, do whatever and create some lines that way. And what happens with watercolor paint is the watercolor paint will go down inside those lines and it gives it a really cool effect. So I'm going to show you that in just a second here. Um, and then you'll be able to see the lines up here. Okay, that's fun. I'm enjoying this. So that's a whole a whole painting in and of itself, right there, right there. Now, once it's dry, of course, the color is going to change. So at that point, you may say, "Oh, I want a little bit more of this, or I want a little bit more of that," or you can come back in with markers and add whatever you want to add in there. But let me show you. Let me show you up close so you can see. These lines down in here are the ones that I did using the knife. And then these lines here are the ones that I got. They're a little bit, when you use the palette knife, it's a little less, it cuts into the paper a little bit less, but you can still see lines here and lines here, right? So much fun. Okay. And like to me, that's done. I'll wait, let it dry, see what the effect is from it dry. And then, I may want to add a little more paint here, add a little more paint there. But for the most part, I would call that done. All right. Now, as you're working, if you want to know how it looks with a mat, make sure that you have a mat handy. I always have my studio mats. So this is a studio mat that's skinny like this. Okay, has thin, thin. So if I want the full amount to show, if I want the full thing to show like that, then I would use the thin matte, and then you get the whole thing. But you never know. Sometimes the edges don't turn out the way you want them to. So there's the regular. This is a regular matte like this. I'm not going to set it down because it's still wet. Okay, I'm just going to sort of lift it up like this so you can get an idea. So you can sort of get an idea there of what it would look like if I were to use a regular mat on it. I love that this is 9 by 12 paper and these are 11 by 14 mats. And I find oftentimes if I'm maximizing the paper that I really like the thin, thin edges on the mats. So just something to consider as you're painting. You may be like, ooh, I don't like the edges, then the wider one could be perfect for you. But isn't that fun? It is so much fun. Oh my gosh. Now I will babysit this as it's drying, and I might do that again. I might tip it to the side or up and down like this to move things around. But isn't that fun? That is so much fun. And I love the spatter is makes me so happy. Okay, so let's move to Yupo paper. Oh my gosh, I just love the Yupo. So here we go. This is the Yupo. Where am I going to put this so it's flat? And let me tell you, all of my attempts do not always come out perfectly. Oh, Wheat said, ooh, watercolor, hello, over on YouTube and said, can you see the chat? Yes, I can. Sorry, Wheat. Yes. When I get focused on a piece, it can be a little daunting to try to manage the chat at the same time. So I do apologize if you're still over there on YouTube. And if you are on YouTube, please give the video a like. I appreciate it. So this is one that I was trying. And this is a nice paper, hot press smooth. But you see how that just didn't do anything for me, right? So, when you see a finished painting, a lot went into experimentation and practice before getting to this point. All right. There are a lot of failures that happen before you get to the loving that, right? Okay. Let me move to I want to keep this somewhere handy so I can see it, but I don't want it in the way. Okay, I'm creating a space where I can set this painting aside. Oh, I am so happy with it. I am like in love with this, in love with it. I think I will have to sign that and call it done, right? Biddy Crocker, welcome in over on Whatnot. Hello, hello. Okay, so this is the Yupo paper. This says Yupo medium. So it's 100% polypropylene, and polypropylene is a synthetic plastic. And it comes in a translucent, which is just stunning. You can see here I'm working on another Kandinsky, which will have the little circles inside here. But let me set that aside right now because we're not working on that. But you can see this one is not translucent. This one is opaque. So if it says Yupo medium, it is opaque. If it were Yupo translucent, if it said that on here, then the paper is actually, when you hold it up, it's translucent. They're beautiful, especially you can put like little twinkle lights behind it and they look amazing. But let me put this back in here. Oh no, that's right. I want to put this one back in there that I put the lines on already for doing another Kandinsky style. And so we are going to work with this one. Actually, we're going to work with it on top of another notebook. Okay, because I want to be sure that it is somewhat level. My table is like all over the place. There's a line in the middle of the table right here. So Now, what I'm gonna do, this is 15 inches long. So this portion right here is 8 inches. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this off. So this is 7 by 6. It's perfect. It'll fit into an 8 by 10 mat. So let me just cut this right here. I don't know if you can see that, but oops, I'm not cutting it very straight. I'm not following the line very well, am I? It's okay. It's all right. It will still fit. So let me show you. If I, what I noticed when I made this painting is that this line in the middle here is um, up a little higher on this corner. So I need the regular size mat so that I can twist it a little bit and have the resulting artwork be straight across there, like level. So that is the, what I would do is mount it inside there like that. All right. So that is that piece. It's actually, this piece is available right now on Whatnot if you're interested in it. I haven't given it a name yet. No, 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 no name yet. Okay. Right here, I'm going to take this pencil line. It's just pencil. This Yupo paper takes pencil beautifully. Oh, so pretty. But it's recommended that you use Yupo for watercolors, alcohol inks. So alcohol ink or alcohol markers and acrylics. Okay, they don't recommend oils. I have used the liquid oils from Pebeo on Yupo, and it, let me tell you what, the paper curls like this. It's crazy. Nutso. Yeah, so it's not designed for oil paints, but it is designed for acrylics and uh, alcohol inks and watercolors. It has a nice tooth to it for the watercolors. Okay, that was making me nutso, so I had to trim it just a little bit more. Okay, so let's do one on here on the Yupo. I love the Yupo because it doesn't soak in as much. So it really, 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 really spreads. All right, water, right? We're going to start with water. And I'm going to start with the top. Oh, you know what? This is what we're going to do this time, actually. Okay, we're actually going to do a different technique this time. We're going to use the card. Remember I said there's a technique where you can use a card of some sort, or you can use a tool like this, or you can even use your palette knife. But the card is very cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this card because I don't want it to be so wide. Let me see. Yeah, that's too wide. So I'm going to cut it down to, so you can cut them to different sizes. Yee, whatever you need. Ah, there we go. So we're going to work with this size credit card. So cool. So cool. I think you're going to love this. So what you can do is you can put out different colors on your on a plate or a palette and then pick them up here and put them here and then watch the colors explode. But we're going to use, what colors are we going to use? We're going to use these core colors because they explode the most. So I'm just going to put out here, this is my favorite cobalt teal. So I'm just going to put a little bit of cobalt teal on there. Eek. And then, so with this technique that I'm showing you with the credit card, you see it doesn't work when you have that, the pants. You need a, you need to be able to put it into a, you need a tube. Okay, so this is the phthalo blue, which is your uh, primary blue, phthalocyanine blue, okay? And then magenta, quinacridone magenta, which is also a primary color. So let's put this one here. Yeah. Okay, got it. So now I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna just put it in the water so it's damp along the edge there. Okay, just making it damp. And then I'm gonna pick these up. So I'm just sort of picking them up See the colors on there? Picking them up. And I'm going to run it across here. So I'm just going to start out. Let's see, where do we want it? A little lower, a little higher, a little lower. Ew. Isn't that fun? Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. But I'm going to go back this way. Okay. Just want to be sure there's plenty of it on there. All right. Cool. So you got this little ribbon going. Now what I'm going to do is come in with the water. Okay. Here we go. Ah. Bring the water in there and let it sort of explode toward the top. Come on, water. You can do it. I'm going to use this brush and I'm going to encourage some of this other blue to go up in there. Yes. So we're going to encourage some of this. And now another thing you can do with the credit card that I've seen people do is they'll like pull and they'll create like little shapes using the credit card and then bring the water in. So let's bring the water in. So now we're going to bring water on this side and let that part explode down. Yee. The cool thing is the reason I put the phthalo blue with the pink is that when they combine with each other, they turn into a purple, which I think is really cool. Okay, let's see how it's doing. How's it doing? So we get lots of explosion. Now I'm going to move it around a little bit. Oh yeah, let's bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. It almost looks like it's a rain cloud, doesn't it there? I can pick up a little bit more of the color if I want to here, and then I can do that again in here. So I get a little more interest in the center area there. Ah, I'm actually going to pick up a little bit more of the magenta on my brush because I want the magenta to explode into the bottom a little bit more. Okay, come on, magenta, you can do it. Oh yeah, oh yeah. There we go. So I'm just going to set this aside. Wow, that is so much fun. So much fun. Now, of course, I can also come in with my spray bottle and I want to bring this down just a little bit more here. So I'm going to angle it and spray it down. So we get some like fun spray angling here, right? Do you see some of that? And now what else do I want to do? What else do I want to do? Believe it or not, it can be that simple. Painting doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to play with the materials until you get happy with the process. And then you're like, oh, I love that. And I'm going to do it over and over and over and over and over again, which is what I did last week with the Kandinsky um, type, the rounds. I just went crazy on it because I just loved it so much. Okay, so let's take this. This is just water in here, but you could actually have color. You can mix some of this. Let's do that. Let's take the water. I got the water down in here. Ah, come here, water. And I want to take some of this because what I'm trying to do, okay, you. Okay, I'm squeezing it out so that I can pull up some of this paint inside there. So see how I have some color on it now? I have a little bit of color in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run that color along here. Yes. Now I'm just encouraging it to do more, right? Can you see how it's the blue now is invading down into the pink some more? That's what I wanted. And I'm actually have it on the edge here. So I've got a little more of an angle to get it to come down in. Okay, that's kind of cool. Let me use this down here because I want a little bit more, a little bit more connection there. Interesting. And I like the swirl that's happening right in here. And I like how this looks like a storm cloud dropping rain or something right there. Nice. So I've got like no space up here. I mean, nothing up in this space, and it's all the way down in here. But you take your mat and you kind of look and go, okay, what's this going to look like? Right? When I put it in a mat, okay, that can kind of inform your decisions. So I'm like, okay, I need more at the top up here. So what am I going to do? I'm going to spatter a little bit. So I'm going to spatter with this cobalt blue right here. So I'm going to get a bunch of it on the end of my brush. I'm going to dip my brush in some water so it's nice and juicy. And then spatter. Come on, spatter. That kind of adds to the concept of it raining, right? Being a thunderstorm. Okay, that's kind of cool. Actually, it looks cool when you spatter into this area here. All right, I can see it's at a bit of an angle this way. So I'm lifting it up from this side to get some of the paint to flow over to this side. Okay, what happens when I do this? Nice, interesting. Okay, that's interesting. So yes, a lot of this is just about experimentation, play. That's why Kathy White, wasn't it Catherine White that I shared with you earlier? That's why she does this as a practice, a meditative practice in the mornings to kind of start her day. Because isn't this fun? It's a lot of fun, and sometimes you end up with a finished artwork and sometimes you don't. Now, if you're on Yupo paper, remember the paint is sitting on top of the Yupo paper, right? I can literally take this Yupo paper to the sink and wash it and take the watercolor off. Some watercolors stain, but let's just see. Let's see. Okay. So I'm just gonna get this wet. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna get this wet. I haven't done this before. So let's just, oh yeah. So it's taking most of it off. There's a little bit of a shadow left there. But isn't that cool about this kind of paper? If you were using alcohol inks on this kind of paper, you can literally just use rubbing alcohol and rub it off. Although, just like is happening right now, there's a little bit of like a ghost color left on there because the colors, some of the colors stain, some of the colors that you work with. So I will show you in just a moment. There's a tiny bit of blue and that pretty pink left because they're staining colors. So there's a little bit left there, but isn't that cool? It's like, oh, I didn't like that. So that, then what do? You just wipe it off, darling. You wipe it off and you can start again, right? Isn't that amazing? I'm going to show you what's left of the colors. And those were pretty strong colors that I put on there. But look, I don't even know if you can see that. I don't know if it'll show up in the camera or not, but there's a little bit of blue and a little bit of magenta right there. What? Okay, now I can do it again. So let me take some water. This time I'm going to do it the other way like I did earlier. I'm going to put some up in here. Woo, that's awesome. And then I'm going to grab some colors from here. Let's grab some of this cobalt green. I love the cobalt green. This is a color by Core, this cobalt green. Okay, nice. So let's drop some of the cobalt green in there. Yes. And it's just going, and you can't even see the blue behind it anymore, which is awesome. Okay, let's take the, what do I want to do? Cascade green, maybe. And let's just get a little bit of the Cascade green out of there. Yee! Add some Cascade green along the sides here. Let it explode up to there. Oh, I love that cobalt green. And the reason is that the cobalt colors tend to be semi-opaque to opaque, and they granulate. So you're going to see here in just a second when I put that more of the cobalt green on there, it's granulating beautifully. Okay, okay. I need to drop in some more color here and then hit it a little bit, just a little bit. We don't need a lot. Skeet. There we go. Nice. That's fun. Oy. Okay, you see how it is bleeding up into the water here? Lovely. Eh, there's a lot of water up in there, so I'm just going to do that. What I like to do with the cobalt is my favorite for the sky is the cobalt. Some people like to use cerulean blue. I like to use the like cobalt turquoise or something like that. Come on now, spread. Come on, turquoise, spread. What do they call it? Cobalt teal, they call it. So this was the cobalt green and this is the cobalt teal. Oh, okay. I'm much happier with this. I mean, I was happy with the other one, but I'm even happier with this one. Okay, let's see if I can clean this off and then use it in There we go. Clean that off like that. Just let that sort of do its thing. I can pick it up here. And because it's the Yupo paper, all of that color is sitting on top of there. And do you see how it's sort of looking very wispy? Looks fabulous. Okay, so let's take some of the Cascade green. And at this point, I'm going to put some of it on my palette knife. Come on, Cascade green. Yee. One more time. Okay, let's get a little bit more on there. Nice. Okay, so now I'm going to put the Cascade green along here. I like when the line sort of shows up on either edge right here. Nice explosions up into there. Fabulous. Okay, now we're going to put some water down here and see if I can get it to go down that way. Let's put more on there. The cool thing is that the paint sits on top of the Yupo, so you can actually like scrape into it. Let's just add some water at the bottom. See what happens. Here we go. I'm going to raise this up a little bit so that it's angled this direction, and let's see if we can get some of this color to flow down in here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Lovely. Okay. There it goes. There it goes. Come on, you can do it. You see how it's flowing down into there? I think I need a little bit more water up in this area. Right here. Just sort of touching that a little bit more. So it flows down a little bit more. Ooh, that is so cool. Wow. I really like where that's going. Can you see this sort of swoop right here of that um, cobalt turquoise or cobalt teal kind of blending together with the Cascade green right here? And now I've got the Cascade green coming down into this area. Do I want to encourage it a little bit more? I don't know. I don't know. I kind of look like where it's going. Let me get this back in there. I'm gonna throw a little bit more of this Cascade Green in there. What's left on my palette knife right here. Okay. And then what if I use just a tiny spritz? Actually, do I have those here? No, I have them in the other room. I have those really tiny. Oh, I might have one over here. Hold on a sec. I have these little tiny spray bottles like this. It's called a mini mister from Ranger. Let's try that because that puts out like a little bit more of a directed and smaller spray than this one does. So let's eat. Ah, let's see if I can encourage it. Ah, too much. Too much. Dang it. Okay. Too much. Ah, I was afraid of that. It's okay. We'll just keep working it. We'll keep working it here. Right. And I want to put a little bit more of this. Don't be afraid to pick up your paint on a palette knife like that, your watercolor paint. A lot of people don't even think about like watercolor and a palette knife. Okay, somebody over here on YouTube is, I'm going to be removing your messages because they don't have to do with art. So keep your comments about art. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I just removed them. So what I want to do right now is I want to get more of that cobalt green going back up into that area right there. So let's just grab some of it on the palette knife and just put it in there and see what happens. And I'm seeing like you can just do some, I'm getting some, a little bit, I'm just dropping it in water and then doing a little bit of that. I'm getting an interesting effect here. I don't like what's happening over here, so I can pick it up, right? Okay. Let's get rid of some of that green that's like over there. I don't like all the green up there. I want it to be turquoise. Okay, so I'm moving it, moving. We're on the move. We're on the move, y'all. Interesting. Okay, okay. I like where that's going. I do. It's sometimes it can be hard to tell what it's going to look like until it's fully dried because there's more and more creep going on right here. I'm going to bring this up closer. Isn't that cool though? It's so cool. It is so cool. Okay, let me see. I don't like, now I'm going to use a needle tool because there's a little bit of color right there and I don't like it. So I just sort of messed it around so that it would break up. And now I'm just going to use my brush to sort of integrate right there. Well, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's kind of cool looking. Okay. I actually like what's going on when I put my brush in there. It's kind of giving it some interesting direction. So nice. Okay, well, we won't know what the final is until it dries, right? But what I do want to show you, see, it doesn't take a lot of paint. Just select certain colors, like your favorite colors, and then work with those favorite colors. Like you can see, as I said, I've had this tube the same amount of time as I've had this tube, but you can see which one I like, right? Oh, now this Cascade Green, oh my gosh, I had a small tube of it. And now you can start to see, I'm going to squeeze from the bottom so you can start to see how much of that one I've used, right? Because probably these two colors and a magenta are like my favorites. Okay, I really like where this one is going. It's fabulous. Now let me see what's going to happen when I put this over it. Oh, it's going to look good, right? It's going to have some interest there. And I will probably throw some birds on it, which is what I did here. Let me show you. After this was dry, I was like, oh, that needs some birds. So you see here where I threw a couple of birds in there. Now this is watercolor paper, and this of course is Yupo paper. And if you notice, see the pink on the back of there? This paper I had used to test out some colors and some pinks and oranges, but I didn't like it. So I took it to the sink and I washed it, right? And so this color has a lot more of the pink on it, but this side, I'm sorry, this side has a lot of more of the pink stayed in there. And this side was less pink. There's a little bit of pink in there, but less. And so then I save those kind of papers and I use them for exercises like this. And sometimes I get pieces that I like. So I hold on to them. So you see this one? You see how it has pink all over here? And if you look on the back, there's just pink all over it, but it doesn't matter. Just save your pieces. You don't have to throw it away just because you had some paint on it. Just rinse if you have good paper, just rinse the paint out and the little bit of residual there is fine. It'll just add character to your next pieces that you make, right? Okay, so I can see that a lot of paint was gathered over there. So I'm lifting it up and letting the paint fall in this direction. And I that kind of got rid of the effect that I had created with the brush. So I'm going to come back in here and do some more of that sort of swishing effect, which I thought was really cool looking. Yee, kind of fun. Okay. Now let me show you the effect of cobalt colors. So this is the cobalt teal and this is the cobalt green. Let me see if I can show you. The cobalt green is one of the new ones that I picked out because I know I like cobalt colors because they granulate. Not everybody likes granulation. This one, cobalt green. You see that? Let's see what color the cobalt green is. PG 26. That's the pigment color, PG 26. And so let me show you here what it is that it's doing that I like. It's granulating. See all of this right here, how it separates. The cobalt pigment is heavy, so it falls out of suspension and it gives you all these lovely little dots. You see that? So that's called granulation. And the cobalt colors, in general, the cobalt colors will do that for you. So, okay. I'm just moving a little bit more of this blue. You see how wet it is? It's still like super wet, but that's okay. It's okay. I babysit my paintings and I kind of watch what they're doing and I move them around and adjust them until I get the outcome that I want as it's drying. I could take a heat tool like this. Hey, hold on a second. I could take a heat tool and, encourage drying. The only thing is, what I find when you use a heat tool to dry, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes it just doesn't give you that same effect that you get from patience. Patience, y'all, of waiting for it to dry. And let's see. The other thing is that I've found with Yupo paper, because Yupo paper is a plastic, oftentimes when you heat it, it starts to curl. So I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can bring it up for you. Can you see right here? The paper is beginning to curl a little bit. And you don't want that, especially when you're waiting for watercolors to sit where they belong and dry. So, very interesting. This almost looks like a little island out here in the water. I like it. I like it. I like it. Okay. Not everything that I do ends up being artwork that I like, but sometimes it does. And now if you use Yupo, the Yupo paper, that you can go back and if you don't like it, you can scrub it off and do another one. What? Isn't that fun? That is so cool. Okay, let me let's go back to this one. It's not quite dry yet. These areas right here are wet, but isn't that fun? I love where that painting went. I really do. I think that is fantastic. I love it. And to me, that is going to be a finished painting. I might put a bird or two in it. I don't know. Put a bird on it, right? Now, I want to show you what I do when I have a dry one like this, which I made more as a background. So this, I was doing this similar techniques. It's just the areas that were wet, I was blowing on them. So when the area is wet, you can either use a straw or I just used my breath and I went like that. And I just blew on it to get these little frilly, what would you call those? I don't know, where the paint splatted out. And so this was a combination of yellows and oranges, as you can see. And I'm going to show you how I make doodles on here. So let's move some of this paint out of the way so that I can do that. Come on, paint. Okay, I'm going to put the water over here. Ah, I really like where that is going. Keep drying, keep drying. Oh, there's so much of the cobalt that pigment that is like falling out in the water. I don't know if you can see that right there, but it's like there's the granulation in there. And that makes my heart sing, y'all. I love the granulation, but other people I know can't stand the granulation, but I love it. Okay, so I'm going to move this out of the way. That's our core watercolors. Fantastic colors. All right, let me see, make sure that I kind of get this all in the picture here. And I am going to get rid of some of this water. I really don't want it around because this is watercolor paper. And if I have something wet next to it, you know what's going to happen. It's going to get on there. Okay, so this is what I do to doodle on these. Let me just move this mop brush kind of out of the way there. And I use markers. Let's see, what colors do I want to put on there? Isn't that always the thing? It's like, okay, what color do I want to put on there? There are different kinds of markers that I like to use. This is a fine liner from Winsor and Newton. I like this one because it's not black. It has like this light brown color, which especially if you just want to do your initial sketch, a marker like this can be really good. It's a permanent marker. These are from Pentel. This is my favorite Pentel brush pen. Makes bold lines. So I do like those, and they're available in 4 colors. This is the Sanguine, which is similar to the color here, so that can work, or the black if you want bold lines. And then I have my regular Pebeo, what are they called? The Pebeo markers. So I'm just looking at my Pebeo markers to decide what colors I might want to put on here. Okay, let's use this Sanguine brush marker. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. Now, remember I said that I like this book because of the ideas that you can get out of this book. Okay, so let's just put this away while I pick an image, right? Oh, thank you. Ooh, Indian paintbrush. Those are pretty, aren't they? And then lots of different types of flowers here. Those are lotus, that's the cherry blossom. This Indian paintbrush looks very interesting. Um, here are some plants, different plants here. So, oh, see, I love the eucalyptus leaves. Maybe we'll start with some eucalyptus leaves. And that's a kind of fern, maidenhair fern. Okay, but I think I want to start with eucalyptus leaves. There's a cattail. It shows you how to draw the cattail. A cactus. Oh my gosh. There's so many choices. Look at that. I didn't even realize she had fish in there. There's birds. And then she says, putting it all together, how to do complex designs, which I think is wonderful. This is a terrific book. Okay, so let's go back to I like the eucalyptus. So let's get back to the eucalyptus. Ooh, lily pads. Yes. So let's get back to the eucalyptus. You know what? The eucalyptus is not going to be, so I think this fern is going to be better. It's a maidenhair fern. The reason is I keep in my studio a whole stack of photographs. Most ones that I took or my family took, some which I got online. Okay. So like that's a photo from online, but this is a photo that I took in France. So it's a combination, just printed on 4x6. That's a photo that I got online from a Pixabay or Unsplash, right? These royalty-free images. So I use them for um, inspiration for what I want to do. So this is a photograph that I took of lily pad and there at that angle. And I have lots of lily pad and uh, lotus lotus flower and pad pictures that I've taken. Um, so let's do something with that maybe on here. I like this flower. Maybe put the flower right in the middle there. Let me set my book aside a little bit. So let's just use this as an inspiration. Can you see that? Let me move the water out of the way. Yeah. Come on, water. Okay, moved it out of the way. Now, one of the things that you can do at this point, if you want to, is you can work with watercolor markers. So these are the Pebeo watercolor marker brush pens like this. This is Turkish red. And then, since this is watercolor, a lot of times people like to work with the watercolor markers. Let me see, this is the orange. So maybe I'll do it in orange. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it in. I'm going to fill it in with acrylic paint. So this is an Artist Loft from Michaels. This is the titanium white. So I'm going to use the watercolor marker here. I could either use a watercolor marker, or I could also use an acrylic marker, but I like using the watercolor marker on the watercolor background. So I'm going to look at my picture here, and I'm going to just sketch it, sort of sketch it. So we're going to have a center area here. This is a 12-inch round watercolor. It's by Man Mary, right? Magnani. Okay, that's almost the center. And then we're going to do some of these like this. And we're just going to sort of build this around here. So this is what I do. I just sit here. I look at my inspiration. I draw, right? And then there's another one like sort of out here like this. Don't be hard on yourself, okay? I'm not a realist when I do art. I just want to have fun. So these are the Pebeo Colorex watercolor markers. What you need to know about these colors is that they are the colors that are on the back here are professional grade colors that have long light fastness. These Colorex paints are they're dye based, they're not pigment based. So a paint that comes in a tube like this is pigment based. And for the most part, they are light fast. Now, sometimes there are certain colors that are not light fast, but it'll tell you right on the tube. When you're working with illustrators inks, like this is the Colorex will fade. But if we're going to go over top of it with acrylic, it doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter because the acrylic is not going to fade. Okay, so I'm just sort of building my leaves, my petals out here, but you can just do your design however you want here. And I like using the watercolor marker and then coming in with the uh, acrylic paint because it's watercolor and watercolor. If I made a mistake, if I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't want that line there, I can just take a little bit of water like this and I can just work it in, and it basically the line disappears. So I'm going to bring it up so you can see. You see that? So you're able, if you're using a watercolor marker like this to do your sketching, then no fuss, no muss, no mistakes. It's all good, right? It's all good, darling. Okay, there we go. I'm just getting an idea. And even if it's dry, these are um, watercolor pens or markers. So you're good. You're good, darling. You are good. Okay, so that's going to be the white flower in the middle. And then I'm going to have, now I'm going to use the same color on here. I'm not going to use green, even though right now I'm going to outline these lily pads. I'm going to use the orange. And the reason is because the background has oranges in it. And if I make a mistake, I can just use a little bit of water and it'll blend right in with the background, right? But when I'm actually painting it, I'm going to use a green acrylic paint and it'll go right over top of this. So I could do that, or I could use like a brown because there are brown colors in here. I could use a yellow. Sometimes I'll do my outlining in yellow. The only problem here is I won't really be able to, I don't think I can see the yellow if I use it on this background. So let's say there's this one over here. I'm going to go like this. Yes, see, I can't even see the yellow. I can barely see the yellow on the background. So I'm just going to use this, which is fine. I don't even have to have a strong line right there. And you know what? You don't even have to fill the whole area either, because I want to leave this interesting edge right here. So I'm actually not even going to do the whole leaf. I'm only going to do part of the leaf. There's a little center to the leaf right there. So that's one leaf. I'm going to do another leaf here. So this one goes like this. So I'm just looking at my picture. I'm constantly using reference images, right, that I find. Okay, this is only a partial one. It kind of goes behind there. So I'm not going to cover all of this area. I'm only going to put a little bit of green in here, right? As artists, we can do that. We can do you don't have to say everything. You can leave some of the concept to the imagination. Okay, so there's another leaf over here that comes in the center. I will put the center like right here, but it goes out like this. And then this comes here, and then it's going to come this way and in there. So you can see I'm not following this exactly. I'm just creating my own sort of my own idea. Okay, so this one, I don't really want it there. So I'm just using a little bit of water because that area is going to be covered up with paint. So I'm not so worried about it. There we go. Big. So I know where my line is. Isn't this amazing, y'all? This is so amazing. I love doing this. Okay, so I'm going to pretend like the other one goes right here. And it comes around here. And then it's going to come in like this. And then we've got this here. And then it comes up here like this. There we go. And I think I'll do one more here where I put this right here. And this is going to go here. And then this side is going to go here, right? Because some of it's going to go back behind these. This one's going to come around here and here. And it's going to come here and right here. All right, fun. And then one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Usually 5 is a good number, but I'm going to do 6 because then normally I work in odd numbers. So if I do an even number of leaves, then the flower will make the odd number, right? Okay, so what else do I want? I want one that has this right here, and then it's going to come out this way, and then it's going to come over here, and then this way, and here, and then that's going to go there. Okay, so I have my, now it looks like this goes all the way out here, but this one doesn't. It's not, it's like lopsided over that way. Does that mean the painting is going to go like that maybe? I don't know. No, this needs to come up higher. Sometimes you just need to look at it and then make adjustments, right? So this one should come right here. This one's going to come up this way. There, that might help. So let's do this. I'm going to get rid of that line so it doesn't confuse me. So you're probably looking and going, but Tristina, you're going to cover up a whole bunch of that stuff that you already did. Well, this is where you have to edit, right? As you're working on it, you're going to edit, 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 edit. And you're not going to cover it all. You're just going to cover parts of it because we're artists and that's part of the artistic process. Now, I'm noticing that the flower is over to this side a little bit, which just means I have to turn it around and decide where I want the top and the bottom of the artwork to be based upon the fact that the flower is not in the center. So I think there. So this is going to be my top and this is going to be my bottom, I think. But as I work on it, that will, I'll figure that out. And let me see. I'm just going to show you a little bit of the white going on there. Now, normally I would put this on a palette paper. So I have some palette paper here. This is just, it comes in a pad. They're throwaway palettes. It's shiny. And that way you can put your acrylic paint on there. Okay. And then I'm going to find myself a brush that is appropriate for using with acrylics. So let's see, I have lots of them. So here's this one. This is a Princeton. And I'm going to drop that in the water. I always like to start with a brush that has wet on the top there. And let's take this here. And then I will just begin dropping in the white. And because it's acrylic white, it's going to cover what's underneath it. This is titanium white is the color. And as I paint, I may edit. So this would be considered mixed media because I'm using a combination of acrylic paints and watercolors. But it's okay to paint your acrylics right on top of your watercolors. And if you don't want to paint, if you're more comfortable with a marker, then I'm going to show you the Pebeo acrylic markers here in just a second. Let me put that in there. Oh, fun, 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 fun. Okay, I'm just going to move this out of the way for a moment and get the acrylic markers. So let's see, here's, nope, that's a yellow. I'm looking for a white one. There we go. So this is an acrylic marker. This happens to be a Pebeo acrylic marker, but many different companies make acrylic markers. And you can hear there's a little, oh, let's put the lid on because I don't want it flying. Um, you can hear the little ball inside it. And then again, I use a one of these palette papers. This first, I shake it to get the paint all mixed up in there, and then you pump it. So this is a pump marker, and that helps the paint to flow into the tip. And now I could actually come in here, and that is acrylic paint. It's just acrylic paint. It happens to be in a marker. Nice. So some people are more comfortable drawing than they are painting. And if that's the case, I recommend that you get yourself some good quality acrylic markers like that. Now, what's happening is because this is the first layer of acrylic, some of that watercolor underneath is, this is water-based and the watercolor is water-based. So it is coming up into the watercolor is resuspending into the liquid paint. But that's fine because once it's dry, you can just go back over top of it with your pen again. Let me do this right here. And so I will normally do 2 to 3 layers if I'm using the acrylic pens on top of watercolor, because the pens will pick up the watercolor and it'll combine. Now that may be an effect that you like, but if it's an effect that you don't like, then you just put another layer on it. That's okay. There we go. Is that fun? So I actually want that one there. So you see in between, I keep pumping it a little bit here, a little bit there, just pump, 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 because I need to be sure that the paint is flowing. Now it depends on what brand it is. Some of these, the more you pump it, you'll get a splat of paint out, and you don't always want that. That's why I use the palette paper to do my pumping on and not the painting itself, because I don't want the paint to splat out. If it's going to splat out, I want it to splat out on the palette paper and not on the painting, right? Okay, so you can see where that's beginning to take shape now. Um, and then let's go with I have a lot of color, a lot of paint on there. Let's do one of the green ones. Let's see. There's this acrylic marker here. Let's shake it. Some people call them pump markers, right? Ooh, look, see this? There was a whole bunch of color went right there. So I don't know. Do I want it to? I guess I'll just put it back over there. It was because of the direction that it was sitting. It wasn't exactly level. So let's get some of this green right here. Get it to flow. Now, the nice thing that I like about the Pebeo markers is if this tip, let's say it dries out and the paint won't flow into it anymore, you can remove it. And so somewhere here, I have a pair of pliers, believe it or not, right in, I'm looking for my pliers. They're sitting in one of my little bins here. Well, I'm not seeing it right away. I think it's in this bin right here. Where are you, pliers? Well, I'm not seeing my pliers, but normally what I would do is just use my pliers. Ah, make sure that doesn't fall down. Use my pliers, pull this out, and there's a spare nib in the top. Do you see that? So then you would just take this nib, pop it in there, pump it a couple more times, and away you would go. It just depends. Different things cause your nibs to go bad. Maybe you ran it through some other paint and it dried in there. You know, it could be that this paint is almost out too. Okay, so if I had my pliers, which I know are here somewhere, but I'm just not putting my hands on them right this second, then I would pull that out and do that and show you. But let me pick another one. Oh, let's see, that came out of the wrong bin. There's another one over here somewhere. Let's see. We'll use the light green one. Okay, that's flowing. So let's just do this. I just generally I start out with the markers and then I go to the brush, to the paintbrush with the paint. And that's just so that I can, get placement of everything here. And let's just sort of do this. That color may not be the final color, but it doesn't matter. You're going to cover it over. If you're using acrylic, I always like to say there's no crying in acrylic because you can just go over top of it with another color, another layer, just another layer, and you don't have to worry about it. So right now, just so that you can see it, I am using the marker and sort of creating the lines here. Yee. And they don't have to be perfect because I'm going to go over them with a paintbrush. Okay. So there we go. It's fun. See, I don't have to fill the whole thing in even. I can just fill parts of it in. I'm just going to do these. And then the workshop will be over. Yay. There we go. See, sometimes it runs out, and that's why I'm constantly pumping it. Pump, 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 pump. Oh, this is fun. This one's going to look nice. I'll try to finish it for next week so that way you can see at next week's workshop what how it turned out, right? That's part of the fun of doing this with you each week is being able to see the results of some of the things that we start during class. Okay, so let me just get this here and then pump, pump, pump. I'll just do this one here. Yee. See, I'm not worrying to get it too perfect. Y'all, you don't, some people like photorealism and getting their work perfect. Okay, I am not that person. I am definitely not that person. Okay, so we got a little bit right there. I'm just looking to see if there are little bits that go, I missed something here. Okay, there we are right there. Bink. Okay, so that's going to be fun to go in and paint, but at least you can see. Now, I'm not going to, I could fill these in completely with the markers, but I like I prefer the variation by using multiple colors and on a palette like this and getting variation in the colors in here so that the colors will not just be a solid color like they are coming out of the marker. They will be combinations of acrylic colors that will go over top of that. All right. So let's review what we've done so far. Here's this one. You can see it's still just a little bit wet there. And I'm kind of moving the color around a little bit. And that's where I had said that I will babysit. I'll often babysit these because can you see the little line right there? So this time when I moved it around, I didn't bring the color all the way down to the line. So now the edge is going to dry and there's going to be one line and a second line and maybe a third line as I babysit it in order to see how the colors flow. And now you can really see, can you see the granulation in there? Isn't that fun? Oh my gosh, I just love the granulation. Okay, I'm trying not to get that white, that dollop of white paint that I put out. I'm trying not to get it all over everything. Okay, let me get this set up here so that it's, yee, hold on. I'm trying to get it set up so that it is, can dry and I won't end up putting something on top of it, right? And then let's review this one right here. Now, what you're going to notice is you see how as it dried, the colors got lighter. So that is part of the nature of watercolor is the colors look very bold when we first put them down, but now they're looking a little bit more muted or subdued, but I really like where this piece went. I like it a lot. I'm very happy with the outcome, but it has that soft look, and that's the soft edges that we were going for tonight. All right, fantastic. Let's go ahead then. This is the end of the workshop.